Step back in time to the year 1925. Picture a truck driver who has been gripping a heavy steering wheel since long before the first rays of sunlight hit the horizon. In this era, the driver's seat isn't a cushioned chair. It is a rigid wooden bench inside an open-air cab. There is no roof over his head, no heater to fight off the morning chill, and no windshield to protect him from the rushing wind. As the long hours drag on, twilight turns into deep night. The driver is utterly spent, his muscles aching and his eyes burning with exhaustion. Today, a tired trucker would simply pull into a brightly lit rest stop or park at a motel. But in 1925, roadside lodging for massive commercial vehicles does not exist. There are no safe havens. Faced with pitch darkness and absolute exhaustion, the driver pulls over to the side of a deserted path. He doesn't curl up on the seat. Instead, he shuts off the engine, steps down onto the dirt, and walks to the back of his vehicle. There, bolted directly onto the metal frame of the truck, is a small, crude wooden compartment. He opens the narrow hatch, turns around, and crawls inside feet first. Once he pulls the door shut behind him, he is enveloped in total darkness. There is no light, no ventilation, no room to stand up, and barely enough space to roll over. It feels exactly like a wooden box meant for the ground. Truckers had a grim but accurate name for this homemade shelter: the coffin. Yet thousands of men willingly chose to sleep inside these miserable spaces every night. Why would anyone willingly choose to spend their night inside a pitch-black box barely wider than their own shoulders? To understand that choice, you have to look at the other paths available to these early drivers. The truth is, by the mid-1920s, a long-haul trucker had exactly three options when darkness fell, and every single one of them was a complete failure. The first option was to simply sleep upright inside the vehicle's cab, but these early trucks were built entirely for utility, not human comfort. The cab featured a single rigid wooden bench seat that offered absolutely no recline. A full-grown man could not lie flat across it. Drivers would fold their aching arms over the large steering wheel, press the side of their head against the cold glass window, and pray for a few hours of unconsciousness. You would wake up stiff, shivering, and with your neck bent at a painful angle, only to start another grueling 10-hour shift. The second option was to sleep outside on the ground. On rural routes, drivers would pull over, unroll a heavy canvas bedroll, and slide underneath the trailer for a modicum of shelter. In the summer, this meant enduring aggressive insects, suffocating humidity, and sudden rainstorms that soaked through the canvas. In the winter, it meant waking up with your bedding literally frozen to the dirt beneath you, leaving you entirely exposed to the elements. The third option was to find a local boarding house or a roadside farmhouse willing to rent out a patch of floor space. But in the late 1920s, early motels were built exclusively for passenger cars, not massive commercial vehicles. The parking lots simply couldn't hold them. Even if a driver did find a place, leaving the truck unattended meant their valuable cargo was completely exposed to thieves. The road offered no good choices, and that is exactly why drivers took matters into their own hands. As the harsh winter winds began to sweep across the northern routes, the reality inside the coffin shifted from a suffocating oven to a freezing vault. The thin walls had absolutely no insulation. The cold metal plates conducted the freezing outside air directly into the box, completely bypassing the driver's single woolen blanket. By 2 o'clock in the morning, the temperature inside the compartment would drop so low that it matched the freezing wilderness outside. A driver had two choices: crawl out into the freezing night to restart the truck engine for warmth, or shiver under the blanket and pray for the sunrise. Most chose to stay put because leaving the blanket meant facing a brutal, biting cold that did not negotiate. But the freezing cold wasn't the most dangerous part of a winter night. The early sleeper boxes mounted directly beneath the cab or over the frame often had unsealed floorboards. As the truck engine idled to keep the driver warm, dangerous exhaust fumes, filled with deadly carbon monoxide, would slowly seep up through the cracks in the floor. Carbon monoxide has no color and no smell. It is completely invisible. In a tiny, unventilated box, a driver would simply close his eyes and never wake up. It wasn't a rare rumor. Drivers knew the immense risk perfectly well. Yet because the open road offered absolutely no other choice, thousands of exhausted men accepted the danger as part of the job, pulled their blankets tight, and closed their eyes anyway. After learning about the intense heat, the freezing cold, and the terrifying danger of breathing in invisible, deadly gases, you would probably expect that truck drivers absolutely hated these boxes. It seems like something they would only use because they had no other choice, throwing it away the very second a better option came along. But history shows us something completely different and highly unexpected. Many long-haul truck drivers actually loved their homemade coffins and would fiercely defend them against anyone who criticized them. They didn't prefer them because they were comfortable, but because of a massive hidden gift that the tiny box provided: total freedom. When a driver had a custom sleeper box bolted securely to their truck's frame, they became completely independent. They no longer had to plan their entire journey around finding a local boarding house or a rare roadside farmhouse. They didn't have to waste their hard-earned money renting a small patch of floor space every single night, and they never had to add extra hours to an already exhausting schedule just to hunt for a vacancy. They gained the power to pull over and rest the exact moment fatigue hit them, right where they were on the side of the road. Most importantly, a long-haul trucker was personally responsible for their valuable cargo. Leaving the vehicle unattended overnight at a local inn meant exposing the trailer to thieves. Sleeping right on the truck frame meant never leaving their freight alone, keeping it completely safe from harm. The coffin wasn't a luxury, but it gave these men control over their own lives, and that changed the trucking industry forever. By the close of the 1920s, a unified message was echoing from independent drivers across the American continent straight into the boardrooms of manufacturing plants. Human rest was not an optional luxury. It was a fundamental necessity of the trade. Trucking companies finally realized that to move freight across a massive country, they had to build a proper place for the human being steering the machine. In 1933, Kenworth broke new ground by introducing the very first factory-built, integrated sleeper section. Though incredibly basic and still open to the main cab, it was structurally sound and engineered directly into the vehicle's design. By 1947, they advanced the industry further by separating the sleeping compartment entirely from the driving area. This offered unprecedented privacy, vastly improved safety during accidents, and made team driving truly efficient, allowing one driver to rest in a proper berth while the other kept the wheels rolling. Innovation quickly accelerated. In 1953, Freightliner flipped the industry's perspective by engineering the overhead sleeper bunk, which sat directly above the front seats. This space-saving design allowed long-haul truckers to enjoy a built-in bed while still complying with the incredibly strict truck-length laws of that era. Amazingly, these early factory-made beds were still only 18 to 24 inches wide, measuring exactly the same size as the crude, homemade coffins that drivers had hammered together out of scrap wood 20 years prior. The revolutionary difference lay in structural integrity, proper ventilation, and factory collision safety. Today's long-haul trucks resemble rolling studio apartments, complete with advanced climate control, refrigerators, televisions, and plush mattresses. Yet every ounce of luxury a modern driver takes for granted traces its lineage directly back to a 1920s pioneer who bolted a crude wooden box to his frame, called it a coffin, and drove confidently into the dark. Today, the transportation industry moves with high-tech precision, yet it remains dependent on the human heartbeat behind the wheel. A modern semi-truck is a marvel of engineering designed to keep global supply chains moving without a single second of delay. The sleeper suite has evolved far beyond basic survival. It is now a specialized cockpit for the athletes of the highway. Advanced soundproofing blocks out the roaring hum of neighboring engines. High-efficiency filters ensure the interior air is perfectly clean. And computerized mattress systems adjust firmness dynamically to prevent physical fatigue during rest cycles. The modern long-haul driver is a vital coordinator managing a rolling logistics center. Yet even with satellite navigation, automated collision prevention, and luxurious studio living spaces, the fundamental essence of the job has not changed since 1925. It still requires immense discipline to leave family behind, face unpredictable weather, and carry the heavy weight of responsibility for thousands of miles. The highway is safer, cleaner, and incomparably more comfortable than the muddy roads of the past century. However, every single time a modern driver clicks off their cabin lights, pulls a plush comforter up, and safely closes their eyes in the dark, they are participating in a proud, century-old tradition of independence and resilience that was built, nail by nail, inside the very first homemade coffin. Looking back over the long road from 1925 to the present day, it becomes beautifully clear that the story of the sleeper box is not just a history of changing metal, wood, and technology. It is a profound testament to the unyielding spirit of the human beings who chose a life on the move. The primitive, freezing wooden boxes that early truckers called coffins were born out of absolute raw necessity, but they quickly transformed into the very foundation of modern global commerce. Those brave pioneers traded safety, warmth, and physical comfort for a single powerful prize, the right to be entirely independent on the open highway. They proved to the manufacturing giants that a truck is only as strong as the person steering it, forcing the entire world to reshape the concept of transportation around human dignity. Today, when a massive semi-truck glides smoothly past you under the stars, carrying essential goods across continents, you are witnessing a direct continuation of that exact same heritage. The roaring dirt trails have been replaced by smooth concrete lanes, and the freezing iron plates have turned into climate-controlled studio suites, but the soul of the journey remains completely untouched. It still takes a special kind of courage and quiet discipline to face the empty night road alone, miles away from the comforts of home, holding the responsibility of the world's supply chains in your hands. The modern luxury cab is a magnificent shield against the elements, but its true purpose is exactly what it has always been: a hard-earned sanctuary for the restless driver. Every mile conquered today is a quiet tribute to the forgotten heroes of the past, who built a home on a frame, turned the key, and boldly chased the horizon. The story of the sleeper compartment is far more than a timeline of changing laws, expanding dimensions, and mechanical upgrades. It stands as a profound testament to the unyielding spirit of the human beings who chose a life on the move, transforming a brutal, grueling job into a legendary American tradition. The primitive, freezing boxes that early truckers called coffins were born out of raw necessity on the edge of dark, muddy roads, but they quickly became the very foundation of global commerce. Those brave pioneers traded safety, warmth, and physical comfort for a single powerful prize: the right to be entirely independent. They proved that a truck is only as strong as the person steering it, forcing the industry to change forever. Today, when a massive semi-truck glides smoothly past you under the stars, carrying essential goods across continents, you are witnessing a direct continuation of that exact same heritage. The roaring dirt trails have been replaced by smooth concrete lanes, and the freezing iron plates have turned into climate-controlled studio suites, but the soul of the journey remains completely untouched. It still takes a special kind of courage and quiet discipline to face the empty night road alone, miles away from the comforts of home. The modern luxury cab is a magnificent shield against the elements, but its true purpose is exactly what it has always been: a hard-earned sanctuary for the restless driver. Every mile conquered today is a quiet tribute to the forgotten heroes of the past, who built a home on a frame, turned the key, and boldly chased the horizon. As we look toward the next horizon, the trucking industry stands on the precipice of another massive evolution. Electric drivetrains, autonomous driving systems, and artificial intelligence threaten to reshape the open highway once again, potentially removing the human driver from the cabin entirely. Yet no matter how automated the future becomes, it can never erase the profound human legacy etched into the very asphalt of our continents. Every route mapped by a computer was first conquered by a tired man steering through a midnight blizzard. Every automated logistics network relies on corridors carved out by pioneers who risked everything for a paycheck and a taste of true independence. The crude, makeshift coffins of the 1920s were built from iron and wood, but their true material was pure resilience. They remain an immortal symbol of human grit, A reminder that progress is not just driven by corporations and engineers, but by the ordinary workers who refuse to back down from a challenge. The modern frontier will continue to change, but the spirit of the open road is eternal. It lives on in the memory of the men who rolled their blankets tight, ignored the freezing metal, and drove confidently into the dark, building the modern world one lonely mile at a time. As the final taillights fade into the night, we are left with a profound truth. The modern world we live in was built by men who slept in boxes. The next time you see a massive semi-truck rolling down the highway under a blanket of stars, look closely at the cabin. You are not just looking at a piece of heavy machinery or a vital tool of global logistics. You are looking at a direct descendant of the crude, homemade coffins of 1925. The spirit of those early pioneers who traded every comfort for a chance at true independence remains completely alive in every mile conquered today. They force the world to understand that the open road belongs to the human heart behind the wheel. The trucks will continue to change, tracking lanes with artificial intelligence and humming quietly with electric power. The old wooden planks and freezing iron plates are gone forever, replaced by luxurious rolling studios. Yet the invisible chain of heritage remains unbroken. The dedication, the discipline, and the quiet courage to face the vast, lonely dark alone will always be the true fuel of the transportation industry. The coffin started as a symbol of hardship, but it evolved into a monument of human resilience. Those forgotten heroes built a home on a bare metal frame, turned the key, and boldly chased the horizon. And in doing so, they drove us all straight into the future.